Schalk, thank you for speaking to us here on ANN7 at the beautiful Newlands. It's just the perfect place to talk about what an illustrious career you've had. Tell us a bit about where it all began. Growing up, did you know you were going to be a professional rugby player?
Well, not professional rugby player, but obviously I grew up on the stands here. You know, the old scholar seats used to be just in front of the main stand here, in front of, it used to be standing seats down here. So obviously my old man, you know, used to play here, mid to late 80s, and at that stage, you know, I just about got enough recollection of standing here watching captains run. You know, back then they just, halftime was still the big can of water, so obviously out the can with a bucket of water, chucking it on my brother, running around. And obviously, you know, playing rugby in your jeans after the game's finished. We sort of used to be allowed on the pitch after the game, you know, and the lights used to be on for like a couple of minutes, 15 minutes or so. So you try to make as many tackles and as many ball carries in as 15 minutes. So obviously fond of rugby. I mean, you know, growing up in South Africa, you know, rugby is, you know, it's in our living rooms every weekend. But professional rugby player at that stage, no.
Well, it was certainly in the genes. How much of an influence did your dad have on you as a person, not just a rugby player?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, you know, obviously a lot of interest about rugby came from him, because obviously we were at rugby and he used to commentate in the mid-90s, so we obviously watched a lot of rugby and played a lot. You know, my brother is a year younger than me, so he was my tackling bag for a long period of time. So after that, you know, I think, you know, my dad became a dad, you know, so you know, he still got his views on rugby, but sometimes I differ from him, you know. So at the moment, you know, he's when I was younger, more of a mentor, now just more of a dad or a friend.
Tell us a bit about growing up, school obviously at Paarlgym. Tell us a bit about your experiences, your friends, and just what it was like growing up here.
Yeah, so I grew up in Wellington. Went to primary school called Igorist, which was a lot smaller then than it is now, but the main game was rugby. Yeah. So obviously Afrikaans school, so we all loved our rugby there. And then my dad took me to watch Paul Jim play a rugby game. I think it was against Oakdale when I was standard 4 or standard 5. And I couldn't believe how many people was watching the schoolboy rugby. So that obviously planted a seed. And then when the decision time came, listen here, where do you want to go high school? I said, listen, Dad, I'll hop across to Paul Jim. And then, you know, Paul Jim, you know, it's a great rugby school. It's a great school. So went across there. And then one thing led to another. Actually at school, you know, my cricket was, you know, taking preference. You know, the accolades in cricket came a bit easier for me than it did in rugby. And then straight after rugby, you know, went to Stellenbosch as a cricketer. And then one thing led to another, obviously still playing a bit of rugby on the side, and then, you know, started playing for Marties in my first year, and then Jake White picked me up and drafted me into the S-21 squad. And as they say, the rest is history.
Well, you played cricket, you played rugby, so I can imagine that you're quite a magnet with the ladies.
I'm not too sure about that. I would like to think so, but I doubt it. I think obviously off the field, I was pretty handy in the pub as well. So hopefully that led to me being handy with the ladies. No, it hasn't changed at all.
We were at Jean de Villiers' tribute dinner a couple of days ago, and, you know, there were 4 captains on stage, and you spoke about, you know, your times on tour. Tell us a bit about what it's like to play in a team, in a Springbok team and then a Western Province team.
Yeah, I think rugby is the most amazing team sport in the world. I mean, it's, you just think about the different people that's playing in it. We've obviously got props, we've got a certain build, we've scrum halves, we've got us loose forwards, which I like to refer as the national build of South Africa, because there's heaps of us, locks, and then obviously the quick fast guys at the back. But just for all of us, you know, to get together, working towards one goal, it's incredible. And obviously, you know, it's a great game. I've been privileged to do it, and a lot of times we become really good mates. And I think the current Springbok crop, why I think the big reason why I've been quite successful for a number of years is because we're all good mates.
Absolutely. Now, you didn't have an easy career, of course. I mean, a couple of injuries, a neck injury, knee injury. But something that has come through is that you are so resilient. We just know that you're always going to come back. Let's just talk about those first couple of injuries. You were out for, I think, the most of 2006. How difficult was that mentally?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, 2006, obviously, you know, I was playing well, and at that stage, you know, I think as a rugby player, all of us go through that certain phases where there's that air of invincibility about you. You know, you take bigger risk, you take bigger knocks, and the bigger risk you take, the better you play. So 2006 was probably the first time in my career where, you know, I had to sit back and say, listen, let's put this all in perspective. You know, what you're doing at the moment, you can't carry on that way. I've never had a problem of switching on or getting away from rugby. So I think that's helped me through all of my injuries. But then after coming back from 2006 to 2007, I think it's actually the first time where I consciously try to change my game. You know, pick your moments. Obviously trying to pass the ball 1 or 2 times per game at that stage. And I think it was quite good for me in the long run that I sort of started at quite a young age evolving my game a bit. So that was the neck, and then there was numerous others. Obviously the big one was a knee injury here at Newlands 2012. Again, 2011 was South African Rugby Player of the Year, played really nice. Unfortunately for us, the Springboks, we lost against the Wallabies in the quarter-final. And then, yeah, feeling really good, form of my life and in the prime of my life. And then had the big knee injury here. Tim Bateman down below, Conrad Smith over the top. And basically just took off everything that keeps your kneecap in place. So that was 2012 gone. That was the whole year. Again, I broke away from it. I was quite nervous about this knee actually. It was almost a career ender, I think. It was almost touch and go if I was going to come back or I'm going to be comfortable running again or play at the same level. And then started training and actually felt quite alright. And then, you know, started getting some weird sensations down my left leg, some spasticity. And that's the very well documented next phase of my career. So I had a spinal cord, a cyst on my spinal cord that was compressing 2/3 of it, and that caused a neural fallout. So I went in for what was exploratory operation, the first one, and then unfortunately for me, got a form of bacterial infection. And because they were working right next to my spinal cord, this infection spread into my spinal cord, and then, you know, meningitis, and then I nearly passed away. So that really put life into perspective for me. That was something unexpected, you know, going in healthy, normal, doing a pre-season with the Stormers. And then obviously quite nervous for the cyst on my back, and then nearly passing away. So then rugby was, for me, it was a goner, you know. It was, for me, the main focus is, okay, let's get back healthy, let's have normal quality of life. Because after the meningitis, I had another 3 operations to remove the cyst off my spinal cord. So it was 3 months in hospital and 4 months flat on my back. You know, so I basically just wasted away. I went in at 110 kgs and then came out on 92 or something.
But look at you now.
Yeah. Look, it's when you're playing rugby like now, it's obviously sometimes you forget where you've come from. But every now and then, you know, you sit back and reflect, and you look at old photos. It's probably quite a clear indication of where I was 2 and a bit years ago and where I've come to now. You know, it's actually been, it felt like a long time, because you know, through the whole year process, every day feels so long. But in 2 years, I've come a long way.
I can imagine it was a very difficult time for the family. You have a young family.
Yeah, it was a scary time for the family. So at that stage, my eldest boy was about six months, I think. Obviously, recently married to my wife, Michelle. And I think, you know, in the beginning, you know, it was scary, but it was not life-threatening. So it might have been career-threatening, which I think we would have been fine to deal with. And then, obviously, that turn for the worse, that's what really got the family. You know, you can't prepare for it, and there was no time. I had an operation, I started feeling bad, went back in, and then it was basically, you know, where's Schalk at? You know, is he going to make it or is he not going to make it? So obviously that for the family was traumatic. And then after that, I think I dealt with it all right, and then the family had to deal with it because they got such a big shock. And then, you know, I got a little bit cheeky, and you know, after a couple of months, I asked my missus if I can play rugby again. So that took about 2 weeks of convincing, and then one night with a lot of wine, I eventually got the yes. So convinced her eventually.
And your family's growing? That's quite exciting for you, I'm sure. When you take some time off rugby, you get to play with the kids at home.
Yeah, in the old days, if I got time off of rugby, it was spending time with my mates and being on the golf course. And now I'm the guy saying, no, I want to be at home. So obviously this year is a World Cup year, so it's quite tough on the families. We're traveling a hell of a lot. But got a second boy, Nickel. He's 1.5, and the oldest one is nearly 3, Scala. So they're very cute. And obviously when the dad comes back, completely obsessed with the dad, so I don't get any time to do anything. They're on top of me basically. Yeah.
Will there be pressure on them to be great rugby players someday?
Look, if I look at them, look at their builds, I mean, potentially they can be good rugby players. But from a dad's experience, and obviously how my body got treated, I wish they played something else. So obviously, if they've got talent in cricket with the IPL,
yes,
let's send them to India.
You've got a plan.
Let's go play non-contact sports. But at the end of the day, I mean, you want them to play sport. You want them to enjoy it. That's how all of we started. I didn't start wanting to become a pro rugby player. I started because it was fun and I was spending time with my mates. So it's just an extension of my lifestyle, really. So yeah, you must enjoy it. I'm not going to put pressure on them now.
Who has been the biggest influence in your life? Your coaching mentor, and just somebody that has always told you you can overcome adversity, you can overcome difficulty, and you can be one of the best Springboks in the world?
Yeah, I think every player's makeup's different. With me, there's been belief. There's been certain belief. If I'm playing at top of my level, I'm possibly the best in the world. So I've had that belief since I was young. I've never doubted myself, and I've also been quite fortunate that I've been very relaxed and calm, and I've been able to see perspective, because I think sometimes when it's not going well, that's when you're working quite hard. You're actually working harder than when it's going well. It's quite tough just to sit back and say, okay, where am I at? Am I playing well? Am I playing badly? So when I was younger, obviously, you start playing rugby and you realize, okay, your dad was a Springbok. You realize that at quite a young age. And then there's obviously quite a bit of pressure, especially when you're young. And I think that's actually helped me quite a bit, because from a youngster I sort of had to separate the perception or what people want me, or Schalk Burger se seun, to separate that from what I want to be. And I think it's quite important for me to get my own identification. I could have never been my old man. He was a lock in the 80s, tough, bigger, bit of a different build than I've got. I'm a loose forward in the 2000s. So obviously he was a big mentor. And then obviously when I got to province, that was my dream. Jake White is the one that picked me up young. So he actually moved me from 8th man to loose forward, flanker, open sider. So he had a big influence. But I think then my first few years at Western Province was also where I got formed nicely with Karel du Plessis, which was attacking maestro. I really enjoyed his approach to the game. And then Gert Smal, who's come back and he's director of rugby now.
What about the toughest player that you've played against?
Yeah, it's tough in a couple of ways. Obviously, Jerry Collins, tough customer. He's one of those guys that was physically intimidating. If you were carrying the ball, you knew someone's chasing you, hunting you. And same if he carried the ball, he looked you in the eye, and there was no running around you, he was running over you. So he was tough, one of the toughest blokes on the field. And then tough because they're good. And in my era, Richie McCaw has been there, still around, and then George Smith. Those are the guys who's been outstanding. Obviously, since then, other players in South Africa has come through. Heinrich Brousseau is a great, unbelievable player. Fortunate enough to play with Dwayne Vermeulen. Francois Lowe came through Western Province. And then obviously Australia now has got a guy like Pocock or Michael Hooper. They're also good players. So the loose forward challenge just gets tougher and tougher.
Well, it doesn't get more South African than being a Springbok player, but what does it mean for you to be South African? What are you so proud about?
Well, it's a country, and I think it's home. It doesn't matter wherever we travel, and we travel to some of the greatest destinations in the world. There's nothing like setting foot back here in South Africa. As the plane lands, all of us, you just get this smile. You got the scent of dry fleece. You got your family, your support system. So for me, it's home. And I don't think there's a bigger compliment than that.
I'm sure you have very interesting food in Japan, but what is the first thing you have when you come back home?
No, it's the braai. I think this week, I've been at Springbok camp for a couple of weeks now, and I think I've had my barbecue on 3 times out of the 4 days this week, and hopefully a couple more come this weekend.
What do you like to do when you're at home, just for fun?
For me, golf and friends, it's important. Me and my wife, we're both socially very active, and we've got a big group of friends. And then, now with my family, spending time with the boys. So drop my eldest one off at school. I'm picking her up at 12, and then we'll have lunch together. And then luckily, both of them goes for afternoon nap. So then me and my missus will probably go out. It's a Friday afternoon after all, so we'll probably have a bottle of wine.
Well, that's fantastic and beautiful to hear. Just a couple of last questions. Of course, Rugby World Cup here. You've represented South Africa in a number of Rugby World Cups. So what is that like? What is that experience when you run on a field and I'm doing this for my country?
Yeah, I think, World Cups are special. We've obviously a couple of guys who's been privileged to do quite a few, and we're holding thumbs that I can make my 4th. But it's a great opportunity. In 2007, we had a realistic chance of winning it, and we ended up winning the World Cup. And at that stage, obviously, for us as a team, the first reaction is just relief. You've had so much pressure, the weight of a nation, and then you get back to South Africa, and you don't realize how big the achievement. I mean, we couldn't understand how vast the support was. I mean, I think there was 15 or 20,000 people at Joburg Airport, and then we went on a whole tour after that of South Africa, and just the whole nation just went ballistic. And we surprised ourselves by coming back here and thought, okay, we've won the World Cup, we're proud, our families are proud, but we didn't expect the whole nation just to be as one. We obviously saw it in '95. So at the end of the day, we're playing for something bigger. We weren't only playing for ourselves or the Springboks. We're playing for this whole nation, and hopefully for us, we can do something special, win the World Cup, and I think it will come a good time for South Africans. I think we need something to uplift. We like to moan. We've got a lot to moan about, but hopefully for us, we as a box, we can put South Africa back on the map.
What would you like to still achieve in life, not just in your career, but obviously in your family life as well?
Rugby-wise, I mean, I'm enjoying my rugby more than ever. Training gets more and more painful, but the games get so much more enjoyable. So, I just want to keep on playing rugby and playing well, because, at the end of the day, that's where I'm at the moment. That's my main priority, and it's going to stay my main priority for the next couple of years. Family-wise, I'd like to have a little girl. Victor Madfield got 3 of them, so he must give me some game plan how to. I've got 2 boys, so let's wait and see. At the moment, I'm quite busy, so we'll give it a few years, but I'd like to extend the family a bit more.
Thank you very much for speaking to us, and wish you all the best for this year. We're sending all of our support.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, guys.